Rebecca Martin, welcome to Everyday Rockstars podcast.
Thanks, Andy. Good to be here.
I'm really excited about this. You and I have spoken many times over the years, but never in such a formal setting. So I wanted to, this podcast is about the everyday people that I know that I think are doing amazing things and have some backgrounds that I find very interesting, and I think other people will too. So before we go anywhere, I'd just like you to give us just a quick background on who you are, how you identify yourself, and how we know each other.
Okay, well, my name's Rebecca Martin, and I live in Sandy, Utah. I'm the mother of 4 children, wife of Jim, and I have been a homemaker for most of my adult life since the birth of our first child almost 25 years ago. And so I have not been employed, but I wouldn't call myself a stay-at-home mom. My husband calls me a stay-away-from-home mom. I find lots of opportunities to volunteer at church, at schools, and in the community. So I haven't been employed, but I've been actively involved in community events for the last 15 years.
Okay. And how do we know each other?
And you are my little brother.
I am one of your little brothers, and you're one of my older sisters.
True.
So I definitely appreciate you sitting down like this, but since we do have different last names these days, I thought we ought to at least clear that up. And full disclosure, let people know why I might hold back on certain questions, because you definitely have the dirt on me. But anywho, I appreciate that. And I like hearing you just kind of, that's why I said how you identify yourself. And clearly you went right to mother of 4, where I live, wife of Jim, and then all these different things that you do. Your community involvement, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's really the thing that I see as, what I find so amazing about you. There's lots of mothers and men and women who volunteer at their kids' schools, and they're crossing guards, and they do all these different things. But I truly don't know many people who do it to the extent that you do and you have. We're both very active in our church, and we have volunteer callings that we do there, and which take a lot of our time. Being a mother, and like you say, you may not be in the workforce, as it were, but clearly 4 kids keeps you busy. I know you've done travel soccer and club, and you don't sit still. And that's no surprise knowing you in high school. I remember just you were go, go, go. Graduated soon, salutatory in high school, went on. I'm sure you graduated with honors from college too. I truly don't know what titles you got when you graduated.
Cum laude. Cum laude.
Cum laude. So, why are you so involved in your community? And can you give us just a little bit of detail on how you're involved in your community?
Well, I started out volunteering at my children's school when our second child went to school. And then I had 2 little boys, and I could take them with me. So I started volunteering in the classroom. And you start in the classroom, helping second graders with their multiplication tables or helping with homework checks. And I loved being in the schools. I loved seeing what was going on in the classroom, getting to know the teacher better, getting to know the principal better, feeling like a familiar face in the hallway. I felt like I got to know my child in a different environment, seeing them in a school setting and getting to know their peers. So when they come home and they talk about a peer from class, I know who they're talking about. Or they complain about their teacher, I know, and I've seen that teacher in action, and can either say, yeah, you're right, that teacher is a little hard on you, or no, that teacher's doing a great job, you just need to do better. So I wanted to be involved in the classroom and seeing what was happening in my child's life. And the more I did that, I started seeing the benefits. That not only was I helping my child, but I was getting to know lots of other students, seeing their successes. Like I was saying, I help with math club, where we help the students memorize their multiplication tables, and you're testing them on that, and just seeing their success when you work with students week after week and celebrating with them. It's a little bit of taste of being a teacher and seeing the success of the students. So that was enjoyable for me, and it's something where I could bring my younger children along. Then I got to know the school as a whole. You get to know the principal, you get to know all the second grade teachers and all the fourth grade teachers. And so I started seeing, patterns, and that I could make a difference, and that I could help other students, not just my own student, but help other students, and help advocate for students, not just my own child. It starts with your own child, that you want to advocate for your student, and I've had to do that many times, where you need to talk to a teacher or a principal or an administrator or a school board member or a superintendent of your school district to address an issue or a problem or a perceived problem or an improvement. And by having that relationship, so they see that I'm in the schools, they know that I'm volunteering and I'm there and I'm a familiar face and I'm willing to work hard, I feel like those administrators and principals and teachers took my input a lot more seriously, because they knew I wasn't just complaining, I wasn't just whining, but I'm willing to put the work in and see both sides of a story or of an issue. And I became more than just another parent that was just maybe complained about something, but I found you come with a solution, or they're more likely to listen to you. I also found it's useful in knowing which teacher you want your student to have and which teacher you don't want your student to have. There were definitely times I would put in requests and you can't request by name. You can say, okay, my student needs a nurturing environment. They do much better in a positive, nurturing environment. And my students always got the teachers that I wanted them to get. So it was a benefit to my students. But then I felt like I was able to advocate, because there are a lot of parents that don't have that time, right? I am very fortunate that I haven't had to work out of the home and be employed. And so I have the time and flexibility in my schedule that I can be in the schools as much as I want to. And that's not true. Especially, it's been getting harder and harder and harder. I'm finding in my PTA roles, it's getting much more difficult to get parents to volunteer, because many families are two-income families, and that's how you have to live in the economy these days. So it's getting harder to get people to volunteer. So since I had the opportunity that I could be there, I felt like I could be a voice representing those parents that didn't have the time to be in the classroom. They didn't have the time to show up at school board meetings. I could help be that parent. And then I became an advocate, and I spread information. People come to me when they say, who are you voting for school board, for state senator, for state elections? Because I've been involved, and I feel like I've been able to learn more about issues and then help people understand it. So I started in the classroom. I've gone on to PTA. I've served as a PTA president for 7 years. And in the other 8 years in between, I've been a vice president. So I've been really active at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. And especially high school, it gets a lot harder to get parent involvement. I think parents are happy to send their kids to high school and that's it. It's not like you're volunteering at the Halloween party for second grade. But high school is actually where a lot of important things happen, and you need to know your administrators. And so by being in PTA, we have PTA meetings where there may only be 6 or 10 parents there. You have one-on-one FaceTime with the principal, and the principal says, what are you seeing? What issues do you see? So it's a great one-on-one opportunity to get to talk to a principal or administrator about issues that my child is having. Sometimes it's simple like, do you know that the parking lot is a complete disaster in the morning? Do you know that there's vaping going on in the parking lot? Or the doors lock at 3 p.m. and my kid goes out to his car to get his track bag to run track, and he can't get back in the school to the locker rooms. Can we not lock the doors right away at 3 o'clock? So little things and big things. So by being involved in the schools, I feel like I'm able to make the school a better place, and I'm better informed. The principal then tells us, these are the issues we're dealing with. This is what our attendance policy is. This is a new program we're rolling out. So I don't know that everybody understands the power of being in your child's school, that you learn a lot, but also your voice is taken more seriously.
Right. You're putting your money where your mouth is. It's interesting what you say there. And I really, really love that you use the term advocate, because I don't think that we really think of involvement in our children's school as an advocate. That term has come to have a lot of legal meanings. And, I think that's the way people think about that. But I mean, you're clearly demonstrating that being there is important. And by being there, you have a voice because you see things. I volunteered in my children's schools as well, but nothing to the extent that you have. And even still, like I've been we had a school community council, and I think that was the one in Utah. I think that's what they called it. And down here, they called something similar, right? And I saw very quickly that by volunteering for this, I had some power and they listened to me, and, and it wasn't like a power trip. It was more of, how many parents do you hear saying somebody should do something about that? Mm-hmm. And it's actually it's easy enough to go, I'll volunteer, I'll come in and I'll participate in this. And in some cases, we got to vote on things. In Utah, when I was part of the school community council up there, we voted on this little elementary school had a substantial amount of money that came in through mineral rights, and the school would go, they would just read off, well, here's what we're going to do with $40,000. And I'm like, hang on, we get to vote on this? I'm a member here. I get to, and realize, some of these, it's not just helping at school. There's literal money and power that you can make seriously changes, because in my case, one of the things we did was we rerouted all the traffic through the elementary school parking lot. All of a sudden, you could only exit this way, only enter this way. They repainted the entire thing. We put arrows, we had signs, and it was just because we were willing to go down to City Hall and talk. And, it actually really wasn't that hard. But so that's why I really like how you use the term advocate. And, where you're not just advocating for the school, but your own child, perhaps.
Everything. Yeah, I've advocated for my own student, whether it's with a coach or a teacher, to an administrator saying, there's this policy that needs some tweaking. I've gone all the way to talk to a superintendent about it. And you need to advocate for your own child, absolutely. But I found there's also a lot of underserved populations that need to be advocated for also. And the high school that my children attend and their middle school was very racially diverse. It's only about 50% white. And so there's a lot of
Utah.
Hispanics and Asians and
wow.
A small percentage of African Americans, Pacific Islanders. So there are different populations that you can see, different things that need to be addressed. I serve on the school community council also, and you're right, at the high school level, it's like $200,000 can be allocated to a high school for you to spend. And it could be anywhere from, are we using technology? It's your school safety plan. It's your, how are you going to affect outcomes? How do we make sure we get more students taking AP courses or more students taking concurrent enrollment courses? How do we help achieve those academic benchmarks that we want to get? And so sitting in on those meetings, those school community council meetings, are very powerful. And I want to expand on the advocacy also. So I've gone beyond the school district. So I have done some of that at the school district level, but you mentioned going to the Capitol. I go to the Capitol twice a year in my role as PTA president, and we lobby legislators. We talk to legislators about education, specifically education issues, but any issues that really are affecting children and families. That could be safety, that could be medical cannabis, that could be vaping laws, rules about vape shops opening within so many feet of a school. So I've started going to the Capitol because I feel like that's where a lot of things are happening, and having a relationship with my state representatives and senators, them knowing who I am and being able to talk to them and email them, and again, bring that information home. I bring it back and I share that with others. Like, you can vote however you want, but here's some information, or these are some bills that we need to be concerned about, or here's a constitutional amendment that they're trying to pass that we need to be aware of, the flip side. So advocating for education has kind of expanded a little bit for me to going to the state capitol, and I enjoy building those relationships and finding out there are things that are affecting our children that are being legislated by. So it's not just on your school board level. You've got a lot happening on school vouchers, on sensitive materials in your school. So getting involved at a state level is really important too.
So, it's I think some people will hear that and think, first of all, either I don't have time, or I can't go to the state capitol. And in some cases, it's very far away. You're in California. Sacramento's not local to everybody. You're very fortunate that you live in the Salt Lake Valley and it's not all that far. But pushing all that aside, you do it. And what is something that surprised you about going to the Capitol and maybe your access there?
They love to hear from their constituents, and they say many people don't realize how powerful your state senator and state representatives take it if you are their constituent. I will tell you, if you don't live in their district, they don't really care what you have to say because you're not voting for them. So you can talk to them, and I do. I talk to other legislators that may not necessarily be the person that I'm voting for, and it doesn't hurt. But if you live far away, they will take your email and your phone call and your text message, especially if you say in the subject line, I am your constituent, or here is my address, or I live in Sandy, Utah on 1700 East. I'm your constituent, and this is how I feel about this issue. They have so many bills. 500 bills are run in a session in the state of Utah. I don't know what Arizona is, but they might have 500 bills. They can't read every line of every bill. They can't understand the ramifications of every bill. So if there's something you know about or feel strongly about, you have great access. Just send them an email or a text. At least in the state of Utah, that's all public. It's on le.utah.gov, I think it is. LE for legislature. And you can find your representative, put in your address, find your representative and your senator, and email them or text them and say, hey, I'm worried about this issue, or I think this is going to affect my family or my student. They want to know how it's going to affect everyday people that are going to vote for them or not vote for them. And they don't understand always the ramifications. So take on an education issue. We're dealing with a lot of lawyers, maybe some doctors. There's not very many teachers or educators in your state legislature. There's a couple, but not many. And so if there's an issue that's important to you, or maybe it's medical cannabis or zoning laws, whatever it is that's important to you, I have found that taking that time to talk, they will talk to you. And if you're their constituent, they will actually take what you have to say seriously. It doesn't mean they'll always do what you want them to, but at least you can inform them and say, hey, there's this issue. And if you're involved in PTA always takes an official stand. That they don't always. If there's an education issue, they will often take an official stand on an issue and say, this supports families and children, and so therefore we support this bill, or we don't support this bill because we think this will hurt children and families. So if you're ever interested, you can always look up your local PTA and see what your state PTA takes a stand on an issue. And oftentimes they'll give you information on both sides. Okay, this is a great constitutional amendment because they say they're going to take the earmark off of income tax that takes money away from education, but they're going to also decrease the sales tax on food. So legislatures do two things with bills, and sometimes that carrot, they're getting you to not pay attention to the other issue in the bill. So it just surprised me that we actually do have access, and if you're far away, you can still email or text your legislators. They are actually willing to listen.
I mean, I imagine a lot of people, myself included, assume that because I to be honest, I've never been to any state capital that I've lived in. New Jersey, Utah, California, Arizona. I've never gone, and so I assume there's a lot of red tape and you can't see anybody. And when they say call your state legislator, it's usually on they're talking more national stuff. But either way, I always think, man, there's some. They got some, page who's going to read this and I'll never get them. But like you're saying there's a lot of it that filters through.
There is. And they ignore a lot of the noise because say that they get a lot of spam email or copy and paste, right? Some group, a very vocal group maybe will copy and paste every state senator and the exact same thing. And they tend to ignore those. But what I found is, one, they also like a solution. If you come to them and not just complain and whine, but if you come and say, you know what, this bill would be better if it had this clause in it, or if it addressed this issue. So there's something proactive they can do, or don't vote for this bill because of this negative impact. So making it easy for them, you always name the bill that you're talking about, House Bill 112, the sensitive materials bill, or whatever it is. Again, they have hundreds of bills that they're reading, and so making sure they know what bill you're talking about, and being specific about what you like or don't like and suggestions on how it could be improved is always appreciated. Anybody can show up at the state capitol and go in the gallery. It was astonishing to me. Like, you could just walk in. You have to go through a metal detector, but
Sure.
those meetings are open
It's all
to the
public.
public. You can sit in the gallery and watch and hear some of the debate and the discussion. And honestly, it's messy. It's long. It's a lot of convoluted language. So you don't sit there for too long before you start getting bored. But you can hear how they're voting on things, and you can send a note. You can actually, at least in the state of Utah, outside of the chamber, I can write a note to my state senator, Senator Cullimore. I'm here, I'm your constituent, and I don't like this issue, or I want to talk to you about this. And sometimes they will come out. Sometimes they will come out and talk to you.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes they're busy, so they won't. So you do have access, and it's our responsibility as citizens, I feel, to make our voice heard.
Yeah.
Not just relying on them saying, oh, we're elected and we have your best interest at heart. We like to think that, but sometimes they're not as well informed about a certain issue as we would want them to be.
I mean, this is an election year and a presidential election year, so you get a lot more people out to the polls. And so a lot of these state senators, state representatives are likely on the ballot too. So I'm guessing that every other year they may pay a little more attention to you. You get out there and say, hey, this is important. Obviously, there's no secret that politicians don't have a great reputation, and I'm not going to slam them here, but to that end, they can't read everything. State senators, or the U.S. senators,
US senators.
I'm trying to think, how do I say that? They can't read everything. So I'm sure, like you said, if I see a bill that seems important to me and I can read through it and I can give them the Cliff's Notes and say, on page 92, highlighted these things, you may want to talk about this if you want to kill this bill or if you want to promote this bill. Because if they just come up here and I'm sure at the state level it's no different. Sometimes they have this great name, the Family Protection something or other, and deep inside is no more school lunches, or there's something that belies the name of that bill. So if you can go in and say, hey, here's the nuggets that are going to help, this is what you want to say on KSL, on the local news, you want to bring up these couple of points here, and you're going to find people who are going to support it.
And just showing up. I mean, it's everything from school to school board elections to school board meetings to the state legislature, showing up. And it's hard, right? We're all busy. But showing up, it's important to make your voice heard.
So I find that interesting. Anytime you text me and our other siblings, there's a picture of you at the Capitol. I'm like, there she goes again. This is unbelievable. But you mentioned something earlier, and it struck me because you know what? I'm just as guilty as a lot of other people out there. When you talked about how parents don't get involved as much in high school as they do at the younger grades. And to be honest, so my kids are out of high school now, but I don't remember them asking for volunteers the way elementary schools do. And oftentimes they're not as close. We live down the street from the elementary school the kids go to, and then it's 30 minutes to get to the high school. So I think that there's probably an arm's length. There's kind of a distance, or we assume they don't need us or want us, or it's, maybe we're intimidated, like, I don't know trigonometry. I can help with simple addition and subtraction. So that's an interesting one to me when you talk about that. And each school may be different, but what was your experience with the needs and the volunteer things you can do outside of, I know you volunteer for like graduation night and that type of stuff. Those seem a little more obvious. That is the outreach. Or possibly the snack bar at the sporting event. Other than those couple of things, what did you see as areas where you could volunteer maybe, and how that was different in the high school versus middle school versus elementary school?
So high school is different than elementary, and then you're not in the classroom, right? High school teachers don't really want parents in their classroom, so you're not there helping them with math or with English or homework or anything like that. It's more on the school-wide events. So, for example, I know we have hearing screenings. They still do hearing and vision screenings in high school. And I think it's all the sophomores or something that get hearing screenings, and anyone who requests it. So if any parent wants to have the free hearing screening, you can have it. And that takes a good 10 volunteers to run that, to get everybody checked in, their name, sit them down, put their headsets on. So that's just one easy one, whether your school has vision and hearing screenings. What we found in high school, one of the problems is parents are involved. It's much more hands off because you either drop your kid off and then just drive away. You're not in the hallways, right? Like elementary.
Or the kid drives himself.
Or they drive themselves. So there's a disconnect in the building, right? You're not as comfortable in that building.
Or the bus, but either way, same diff.
Or the second thing is that parents, I found, are involved in their child's activity, right? So I'm the team cross country mom, or I'm the team drama mama for the theater department. So you're involved in that niche where your student is, which is great. It's great to be involved, get to know those other students. You're helping, feed the teen the night before their big meet, or feed them at a Saturday rehearsal. But as far as the whole school goes, so parents don't realize there's a need for the entire school. One of the biggest things that I feel we do is we help the teachers. We support the teachers through teacher appreciation, and we feed the teachers during parent-teacher conferences, because that's a long day. You think you don't like parent-teacher conferences? They don't like parent-teacher conferences. They have to be in school and teach all day and then meet with parents for another 4.5 hours at night.
I never thought of that. That is impressive that you can go, you know what? How about we make some spaghetti and, every 10 minutes
so
somebody takes a break.
We get a bunch of parents together and we buy food if we have the budget, or one thing I like to do in February, we have crock pots. I just have parents bring crock pots of chili or stew or soup, and bring some rolls and some salad and some cookies, and we have a nice buffet. It's a late lunch, early dinner, between the time school gets out, and then they have about 45 minutes till their first parent-teacher conference dinner. So supporting your teachers. That first week of May is National Teacher Appreciation Week. We try and feed the teachers then. We try and get students. I'll go in at lunchtime. A bunch of us parents will get together and have students write thank you notes to teachers, how they have affected them. And for teachers, that actually is more meaningful than anything else we can do, is getting a student to say thank you. Thank you for being my teacher, for teaching me math, for helping me enjoy science or English or theater, whatever it is. So those are some ways that I found volunteering in the school, helping the school, is supporting the teachers, because they need it in our environment. It's been tough. It's been really tough lately everywhere for teachers, particularly since COVID. And I feel like since COVID, everybody's taken a step back. Everybody has found out you can say no and you don't have to show up. And so it's been a lot harder to get volunteers to help, but I feel like it's more important than ever that we support our teachers, because honestly, if you support your teachers, they will be better teachers, they will be happier in their classroom, which means your student will have better experience in school.
And to that end, I mean, one thing that we've learned, and this on a personal level, is that Skype was around for a long time, and we just never really got all that into it, and there was FaceTime. But with COVID, they started doing distance learning and video calls, and of course we call it all Zooming now. But even parent-teacher conferences. For the last 3 years, I don't know that we did an in-person parent-teacher conference for my son. I think it was all by video, which I found incredibly, convenient. It was much easier to do than having to go and sit and wait. But to that end, there is nobody there feeding them, and there is not that. We actually got, when we meet them in person, you met them. There's something to pressing the flesh and meeting those people. So, COVID exposed all sorts of things, right? There's some benefits to being able to use more video and more convenience, but there's also, I think we found out, hey, I don't need to do things.
And it's okay to streamline, right? Our lives don't need to be as complicated. I think we found some ways there. Some meetings can be a quick Zoom call, and that's okay. But I have advocated and pushed, we need to have in-person parent-teacher conferences. The teachers don't like it. They'd rather do Zoom. It's faster. I've done both. So our school does, one day is in person and one day of Zoom. So if it's more convenient for you to do Zoom, then you go on Wednesday and you just get in all of your teachers' virtual cues, and you can be done really fast. I've done that a couple times, and it's really fast. Your student's doing great. This is their grade point average in my class. This is the assignment they have next. Okay, any questions? Thanks, bye. It's 2 minutes tops. It's
Yeah.
impersonal. It gives you the information, but it's not a personal experience. Whereas when I'm there in person, yes, I have to wait in line. Yes, I have to walk around the building, but I'm talking to other parents while I'm sitting there in line. I'm working and talking through, with other parents, hearing their experiences. You get to meet a teacher face to face, like I said, press the flesh, see their classroom, just get a feel. You get a much better feel for that teacher. So I'm a big proponent of in-person meetings.
Well, like you said, just going in the classroom, sometimes you go, I mean, there's things you learn. Oh, well, wait a minute. I didn't realize that you're using projectors, or everybody uses a computer or a phone, or, there's things that we have no idea. And then, of course, meeting other parents. Sometimes your kids' friends, parents, and you kind of go, I've been wanting to talk to you, good, bad, or the other. But those are things that we have missed out on. It's true.
And I'll say part of my philosophy, as it were, of volunteering, why I do this, I've got two reasons. It's called community and connection. I want to build my community. I'm building the community, and then that's in the macro and the micro sense. My school community, my neighborhood community, Sandy City, Utah. I want to make our community better, but I also want my community, like you said, of other parents. Some of my best friends have been other parents that I have been volunteering with. For 15 years, we've followed each other around in PTA roles, in classrooms, and making those connections. That's that connection with other parents. Now I have this community of other involved parents that care, and we support each other, and we help each other, and then we are advocates and share information with others. So building our community and building those connections with each other, with other parents, with other students. There's been so many students that come up and hug me because they know me, because I'm there, I show up. I'm at the events, I'm cheering for them, I've fed them, they see me all the time. Like they'll come up and say hi to me at back to school night. Like, hey, how are you? How are you, Mrs. Martin? Having a kid come say hi because they know that I care is really important. Knowing the teachers, knowing that you care is really important and valuable. And these other parents, making connections with them. So community and connection are really important to me, and by volunteering in schools, that fills my cup for community and connection.
Awesome. It's funny because I'm an empty nester now, right? I only had two kids. We started early, we ended early. And so as such, it's funny how quickly, I mean, this is the first year, well, we're about to go into our second year, I guess, with my son graduated in 2023. So we're about to start the second school year without him. I have no idea what's happening, right? Because we don't have a kid there. I'm like, oh, his school started? Oh, I didn't know. Like, we're just not involved. And there are things that after this conversation, I'm going to try to be a little bit involved in some ways. Maybe not in my son's high school because that was a little further away, but the local one, which he didn't go to, which is 5 miles away. But it's funny because you just don't know. I mean, and to that end, I'm wondering, because we'd made a lot of connections that way. Like my volunteering through high school for both of my kids was mostly to be the loud parent who got the crowd cheering at the volleyball match or something.
Hey, you need those. You need those people.
It was. I mean, I'd stamped it, and all of a sudden, let's go Ranger. And the next thing you know, the place is raucous. So I was known as that, and occasionally people would say, hey, start another one. Okay, all right, I'll be the loud one. And but you are entering your last, right? You've had 4 kids. Last senior year, last first day of school just happened. How do you see this changing? I mean, because you, in these roles, you didn't stay in the elementary school once your kids were out, right? You kind of followed at least one or more of your kids. How do you see this role changing 1 year from now?
It's a good question. A lot of people keep asking me that. So are you still going to do PTA when your kids graduate? No, I am not. No. I feel strongly that the PTA is a parent-teacher association, or we call it PTSA, Parent-Teacher Student Association. Mm-hmm. If I am not a parent of a student in that school, then that's not my role and responsibility anymore. It's the responsibility of the parents, right? It's your organization, it's your school. Now, we as a community do need to care about, and that's why our taxes go to support public education, because it is for everyone's benefit to have an educated populace, right? It's a lot better to educate students than deal with the problems of an uneducated populace. So I do still support education and will probably still advocate for education and possibly be involved in some of the advocacy of it, but I won't be in the school anymore because they don't have a student.
Okay.
But I have been looking actively for opportunities to volunteer in my community in other ways. So I feel like I have done a lot in PTA and with my schools, like I said, for the last 15 years, very involved. So I've been looking at other volunteer opportunities. For example, I think I'm going to start volunteering as a English tutor, teaching refugees English. There's a
Awesome.
center in Salt Lake City, and that's a passion of mine. I was an English major in school, and I thought about it like, okay, now that I'm going to be an empty nester, what do I do? Do I want a job? I don't really want a full-time job. I probably will get, maybe a small part-time job, but I want to be able to give back to my community in different ways. And it's still an education, but in a different venue. So I'm thinking teaching education or English to refugees. I'm going to do more volunteering for church at the temple. I'm going to be a temple worker. So there's still ways to get involved, but I still think I'll keep my fingers in the advocacy side.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's asked when it's defined you for 15 years. I mean, one of the first things you said was, "I volunteer." And so
Well, I knew that's what we were going to talk about. So.
well, yes, but you think that Mom has done Literacy Volunteers of America and teach adults how to read. Not always refugees. We've got a niece who spent her entire mission teaching refugees up in Idaho. So I appreciate the fact that is maybe, you can kind of keep that legacy going.
That's my
So
plan.
I've got a couple of other questions here for you, and these are ones that I know you didn't have any heads up on. So what is something that you have learned that you would like to pass on to others?
That your voice matters. That what you do and what you say matters, your opinion matters, and don't be afraid to speak up. And if you don't know, it's okay to speak up and ask questions. It's really okay to not know everything and to ask and want to learn more. Go talk to people and find out more because your voice does matter. And one thing I've learned is that the solution to a problem or an issue is often best dealt with closest to that issue. So if you have an issue with your child's classroom teacher, go talk to the teacher, don't talk to the superintendent.
Right.
But there has been times when I've had to make my way up the chain, right?
Sure.
Talk to the teacher, talk to the principal. Then I will go to my school board member and my superintendent. So start close. Don't try and jump ahead. There was one issue early on with our school district that I was really frustrated with our school district. They were trying to get rid of the gifted and talented program, or called SALSA here. And my children were in it, and I was a big proponent that this was necessary.
Yeah.
And so I tried going to the state legislature. Well, there's nothing they can do about it. That's not their purview.
No.
So gathering signatures and trying to talk to my state legislator didn't do anything. It didn't matter. So I found you need to go through proper channels, but try and solve problems closest. And I think that works in our interpersonal communications too, right? It's better to go talk to a person if you have a problem with them instead of trying to go over their head. So that's been an interesting lesson to learn in my life.
Okay. It's funny that you say that. Your advocacy clearly demonstrates that, but it reminded me of a story that our younger brother, Tyler, said. He remembered our grandfather, Pop-Pop. He used to always talk about the power of one. And it was interesting because when he brought this up years ago, I thought, you know what, that's funny. Like, I wouldn't think of that often. But he talked about how one person can make a difference. And the example he gave was Grandma got sick and tired of watching the news every night and seeing all this sad stuff. And, if it bleeds, it leads is the old expression. And she says, can't they just end these with a happy note? Well, I guess she reached out to the local news and voiced her complaint. And shortly after, they started, and maybe you noticed this in your own local news, whether she started or not, she did bring this up, and eventually you started seeing some positive stories in the news, oftentimes the last story of the night. So send you off to bed with a touching story about a puppy or a cat that was rescued from the tree or something. So just more legacy stuff that you're continuing going on there. Just you'd make Francis Ballinger Vigue very proud. not asking you to disclose anything here. You feel free if you want to, but do you have any regrets, and how do you deal with them?
That's a good question. You mean like specifically involving my volunteering?
However you
or just-
define that. However you define that.
However I define
I know I'm someone who, if I miss out on something, I can be a big FOMO guy at times, right? If I miss out on something, it can sometimes just eat at me forever. And there's little things, some are small things from back in high school that still bother me today. And then there's, I didn't do that thing and I lost out on money, or I didn't get to do that fun thing, or whatever, right? Just, do you have any regrets? When I say, do you have any regrets? Is there something that pops in your head and you're like, yeah. And you don't have to say what it is. You can if you want, but it's more of, how do you deal with that? This is something that I'd like to know from me.
Okay, so I don't really have a FOMO, I guess, like you do. One thing I guess.
Fear of
first thing
missing
that
out
popped
for
into my
anybody who
head.
doesn't know.
So
FOMO,
for our
yeah.
10th anniversary, my husband surprised me with tickets to London. We were going to fly to London and go spend 10 days, a week or 10 days in London. And I got so mad. He expected this big, exciting, I'd scream and hug him. I was like, you did what? Without asking me? You realize we have 3 small children, right? So we had 3 children. Let's see, Sam was about 1.5 years old. Elizabeth was 3.5, and then Madeline would have been like 7, 8 years old. So we have 3 small children and no family nearby to watch our children. So the first thing I'm thinking is, are you crazy? You want to go to London? And what are we doing with the 3 kids? We don't have anybody here. So I got really mad at him, and that was not a good reaction. He has learned, don't surprise me. I don't do well with surprises. I'm a planner. I want to plan. I want to know. Don't surprise me. It doesn't work. So I wish I had reacted better to that surprise. Which we flew Mom out to watch our kids for the 10 days.
Yeah.
And she was fine. She had a great time with the kids. We had a fantastic time in London. We loved London. It was great. We had a fantastic trip, and it was wonderful. I just felt bad that here this wonderful, exciting anniversary gift was supposed to be great, and I got mad at him. So, there's my regret. It's okay to be surprised. Just accept surprises with a smile. You'll never regret accepting a surprise with a smile. You will regret it if you go, you did what?
Okay. Words of wisdom. Okay. What is one bucket list item that you will accomplish?
Oh, I would like to travel in Europe. So we've been to France, we've been to England and Ireland, but I would like to do more European travel.
Is there any part of that is a bucket list? You know, if I don't go to any place else in Europe, I want, Florence or whatever.
There's a lot. Probably, I mean, we just hit Paris, but there's a lot more of France that I would like to see. So I'd like to see more of France, Switzerland, Austria, kind of that area.
Okay. Yeah, I like the framing of this question, because we all have bucket list things, and there's ones where it's like, and I'll never do that. Like for me, number 1 is Machu Picchu. I will get there at some point. Regrets. I regret turning down the opportunity I had to go about almost 20 years ago. Bit of a story. I thought I was being responsible. I even had Heather's blessing, and I didn't do it. So I regret that. I didn't regret it for a while. I kept thinking, I think I did the right thing. And now I'm like, what was I thinking? So how do you want to be remembered, and or what is something you'd like to be remembered for?
Oh, how do I want to be remembered? Well, I'd like to be remembered as a good wife and mother. That's what I want on my headstone. Good wife and mother. That my family knew I loved them. Okay. And then what was the second question?
The second one was it could be in place of it or expanded on it, but it was, what is something you'd like to be remembered for? Maybe a specific thing or trait or something like that.
Oh. Oh, that's a good one. Food always comes to mind. I want to be remembered for my dinner rolls. I make the best rolls.
I didn't expect that. Like you asked me this, and it's probably going to be some crazy thing I did on my bike, right? Or some accomplishment I had. And yours is my rolls. which makes it so much more clear why when you went to pick up your oldest after studying abroad for what was it, 6 weeks in Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, you tried to bribe her to get the first hug with dinner rolls.
I did. I had fresh baked hot rolls in my hand. She turned me down for the fiance with flowers.
The fiance.
He won.
I mean,
Won.
you never had a chance.
No.
But that makes it so much more clear. When you sent the picture, I'm like, you were holding rolls?
See, my
So-
love language is food. Like I show people I love them with food. So clearly, like with volunteering, I show teachers and cross country teams and theater kids that I love you by I make you food. I show
like
my
that you've
family
added-
I love you. I make you food. So I want
like
people
that
to
you-
know that I've loved them and cherished them because I fed them.
You know, I mean, I like that you've added a love language. It's not one of the 5. Nope, there's also food. Someone will translate that to acts of kindness. No. Food,
food.
is a love language.
It's not gifts. I don't care about gifts. It's food.
You know, I posted a picture when I got back from New Jersey. So I was visiting mom and dad and had my 30th high school reunion. And I brought home a sub. And I waited a day, and then I ate it. And I took a picture of it, and I put it online, and everybody's salivating, and oh, that's great. And what's funny is the next day, Facebook put up a memory from 2 years ago of a sub that I posted online.
That time of year, Andy goes to New Jersey and gets a sub.
Uh-huh. I looked at it and went, oh, well. And so I told Heather, and she says, oh, must have been when your mom came out for Sydney to go through the temple. And I was like, I look, and I could see, oh, that is our table. And then I read the caption, and it says, other benefits of having your mom come visit. Like, well, there it is. August, I need an Italian sub from home.
It's a tradition.
So, you know, Rebecca, this has been a lot of fun for me and informative, too. You know, obviously, we talk a bit. And, you know, when I referenced how you and I know on a personal level about the Zoom thing, I didn't explain why. I will point out that it's because this year, every month, the 5 siblings haven't missed a month yet where we have a monthly Zoom call. And so to talk to you on a screen like this actually isn't all that strange anymore.
No,
It's a little
fun
different.
to do that.
Yeah, it's a little different because I'm interviewing you, but it's one of those things that I'm really grateful for. I wouldn't say I'm grateful for COVID. I'm grateful that it came out of COVID, that we found another way to stay in touch. And of course, now podcasting is something just anybody can do, quite obviously. So I want to thank you for your time. Is there anything, last message that maybe something you'd like to share, something you didn't get to say that you'd like to add, or even a question for me if you want to put me on the spot?
Well, I know you've been involved in schools a little bit and helping. Have you found success or joy or what in volunteering in the schools? What has that done for you?
So volunteering in the school specifically, like I said, when I was up in Utah, I went to a meeting, and I'm trying to remember why I went. I went there, and I think it may have been to complain about the parking area, because I'd go and they'd ask for parents to volunteer to kind of help direct traffic and the buses and stuff. And so I went to a meeting, and I carried a clipboard in. I had a list of things on a clipboard.
It's a clipboard. It's a clipboard.
I
of
sat
power.
down, and I said, hey, I've got some questions or items. And I got to listen to everything, and they're voting on money, and they immediately made me a chairman of a committee. Like, that's a great idea. I nominate him, and I second it. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what just happened? And then, of course, you know, I got involved, and later I became an elected official. But it was right when we were moving. So I did all those things without being officially on the board. And, you know, when we asked the school, how do we do this? They said, go talk to the city hall. And we went to a city council meeting, shirt and tie, took my kids. My kids spoke.
Oh, that's always a good one.
Yeah. I mean, me and my son are wearing matching bright orange ties, which, you know, that's my favorite color. But it also seemed appropriate when it came to public safety. We were wearing our road cone signs. And, you know, we actually changed something. I couldn't believe it that within a couple of months, they repainted everything. They redirected traffic. And then when I moved down here, I found out that I could get in there, and I was elected onto this board here, and I forget what they call it. In fact, it was one where we got to a point, elections were coming up, and they're like, if nobody really wants to run again, do you just want to stay on? Yeah. So I stayed on, and I did it while my kids were at the school. But there we had a little girl who was one of my son's classmates who died of cancer at 12 years old from Ewing sarcoma. But it was tough losing Abby. But we named the soccer field after her. And I was able to go through and using the sway of my position at the school, I went down and I found a local automotive repair, like body shop that does classic cars and stuff. And I talked to him. I said, look, we're trying to make a sign that's like going to survive the weather that we can put up to honor Abby Kuhneman. And I was concerned how much it's going to cost, but I was going to foot the bill. I was going to do it. And they donated their time. They donated the material. They anodized the metal. What color do you want it? This, that, and the other. And I designed it to look like a yellow, cancer ribbon with a we couldn't do pink, but they could do purple. Like put a mohawk on top, because when she knew she was going to lose her hair again, this was not her first battle, she decided she wanted to have a pink mohawk before her hair fell out. And so, any rate, and then of course our grandfather, not Papa, but our grandpa up in Utah, was a sign painter. He did all the lettering on it. I flew it. I shipped it to him. He didn't know what to do. I went up there and hung out with him, and he hand painted it. And it's this beautiful monument to a wonderful little girl. And I'd like to think those are two things that lasting monuments that to the service I was able to donate my time when my kids were involved in school. So yeah, I didn't I didn't expect that question, or even that all to get so emotional. But yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because it's true that we can make a difference. And I think that's important to realize, to recognize, and to teach our children that you can make a difference. You can, because sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed that the world is so terrible, there's terrible problems, and our country's a mess. But you can make a difference in your world, and you can make your world better for somebody else, right? So for that little girl's family, for all of her classmates to feel like you made a difference, for the safety of the students in that school. And I've dealt with those issues too. If you can make your school a safer place, where children feel safer, or teachers feel safer. So I think that's a worthy legacy of make your voice matter, make it be heard. Don't be just loud and boisterous. That doesn't just mean be the loudest voice in the room.
Yeah.
But do your research, do your homework, be kind, be nice, and that's what gives me hope for the future. Right, for messed up politics and everything else, is that if people keep just being kind to your neighbor, helping out your local school kids, then we're going to be okay.
Well, and like I said, it's an election year, and we always talk about elections have consequences, and so you want to vote for the right person. But as you and I have demonstrated tonight, you don't even have to vote for these people. You can go in and volunteer. You can go in and make a change. Even if somebody you supported for any level of whatever didn't win their election, you can still go in and make a difference in these kids' lives and even the parents' lives, and be a leader, because the number of parents who line up behind you, I was able to get all sorts of parents to volunteer to stand in a parking lot and say, stop, go, all this stuff, because they saw me doing it. And so they come through and do you need help? Can I do that? Yeah, park your car right there and get out. I'm going to get you a vest. So you're right. You're right. I appreciate that. And I think that your message is a good one. Make your voice heard, and you can offer hope to other people.
Exactly.
Well, Rebecca, it's funny, when I was thinking about this today and thinking I'm going to present her, I practiced how I was going to present you, and the first time it came out Rebecca Vigu, and then I was like, haha, I'll say her name, right? And I'll say Rebecca Vigu, and then I threw in our sister's married last name, and I'm like, I don't even know why that happened. That was weird.
Oh, I thought you were
I was
going to
like,
call me Becky.
Yeah, let me. Oh well, yeah, that's true. You've been Rebecca now longer than you were Becky, I guess. But all growing up. So thank you again, Rebecca Martin. You are an everyday rock star.
Thanks, Andy. It's been fun.
Thanks for participating.